Good morning, everybody. Sorry to get started here a couple minutes late, but we want to welcome you all to our Grants 101 webinar. Hold on, let me figure out how to make my screen shared. Let's see. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for our Grants 101 webinar. I'm Samantha Watson, and with me is Michelle Landwehr.
Hey, everybody.
And you might notice right off the bat from this home screen that we have new titles, but it is still the two of us that you are used to hearing, hopefully, over the years. And we'll tell you a little bit more about this new logo that you're seeing, but we want to welcome you all and thank you for taking time this Monday morning to join us. So first of all, if you have a question during the webinar, we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can. If we don't have a chance to, we will follow up with you by email afterwards. But just so that you know, if you ask us a question, we'll answer it, but we won't use your name or any other identifying information. So everything will be kept anonymous. You can send a chat to Michelle, or you can email us at grants@the-Samfund, and we will do our best to answer it before or during or after the presentation. So we'll start with the most exciting news, which hopefully you guys already know. We've been announcing it on our social media channels for the last couple of weeks. But as of July 1st, the Samfund has joined forces with an organization called Expect Miracles Foundation. We are so excited to be here as part of a bigger team. And what this means for the Samfund going forward is that we'll just be in a great position to be able to do more and help more people and overall operate more efficiently. But in the meantime, we're still here. We haven't gone anywhere. We actually are still even in the same building as we were before, just in a different floor. And most importantly, our programs are going to continue as they are. So our grant application will be available this Wednesday, July 17th. And you'll notice that our email addresses have changed, but really nothing else has. So we're really excited about this next step for the Samfund. But for all of you who are listening and thinking about applying for a grant or curious to learn more about our programs, we're going to continue to do the same work that we've done for 16 years in the young adult cancer community, and we're really excited about what this means for our future. So let's jump right in. We're going to talk today about our grants program, and we want to take the opportunity to give you as much information as we can and be as transparent as possible about the grants process, the application itself. Michelle's going to take you through a couple of slides that show you what it looks like and give you some tips for submitting a strong application. We'll be able to share some insight from our reviewers over the years and really just do everything we can to support you in this process, because we want you to submit a successful application and we want to be able to help you as best as possible. So thanks for taking the time with us today. We're going to post this recording as well, so anyone listening after this, know that we're here as a resource for you during the application process and are happy to answer questions along the way. We encourage you to reach out if you're not sure about something, because as we'll talk about later in the presentation, once you submit the application, we can't go back and make any changes or answer any questions or help you get back into the application. So we encourage you to collect all the information you need up front and make sure that you are totally comfortable with this process. So let's talk about the grants. So as you may know, the tagline at the Samfund is "Cancer isn't free." And the reason for that is that in the cancer community, especially when you go through treatment, the focus always is on that day when you'll be told you're cancer-free and can go on and sort of live your life and pursue whatever professional, academic, or other goals you have for yourself. And the reality is that cancer isn't free, and especially once treatment is over, everything comes due, and the financial reality of cancer kicks in a way that is challenging for anybody, but especially for young adults. If you're in your 20s and 30s, you probably didn't have a whole lot of money to begin with, and cancer can turn things upside down. So we're really here to support you in that phase of survivorship when you're trying to move forward and you're trying to get back to work or back to school or whatever it is you want to do, and the bills just make it really difficult. So as all of us know, the costs of cancer go far beyond just the doctor's bills themselves. So if you had savings before cancer, you probably finished treatment without anything in those savings accounts. You may have had to take time away from work, which again is more challenging as a young adult because you might not have been working for that long before you were diagnosed. The cost of insurance premiums or COBRA coverage is astronomical for anybody. And the copays themselves, I mean, they're ongoing, and many people are on prescriptions for a long time following their treatment, and those costs add up. So the purpose of our grants is really to provide some relief from those immediate financial pressures so that instead of focusing on those, you can spend your time, your energy, and any resources you do have on moving forward with your life. And really our biggest goal is to help you feel motivated, supported, and empowered. So we get this question a lot, how much does the Samfund award? And the short answer is that it totally depends on the year. And so we've given you a snapshot of what the last 7 years have looked like, and it varies. But one thing that you will notice is that our average grant size is around $1,500. And we'll talk more about specific grants later, and we have a lot of information on the application about the maximum amounts that we'll award in certain categories and all of that. But on the whole, the average grant size is around $1,500. And our goal is really to provide some sort of meaningful relief from some of your bills. So obviously $1,500 is not going to go that far, with a huge medical bill or a huge school bill. But when it comes to some of the smaller bills, our hope is that those funds can really make a difference in the bills that you're facing. So who's eligible to apply? We're going to spend some time on this one because the last bullet point is one of the ones we get the most questions on. So right off the bat, you have to be a resident of the United States, and you have to be between 21 and 39 years old at the time that the application is submitted. This year, the due date is August 9th, 2019. So make sure that at the time you click submit, you are between 21 and 39 years old. When we first started awarding grants in 2005, we used to say that applicants had to be finished with treatment, but over the years as medicine has advanced and treatment has become sort of, more chronic for a lot of people, we've had to specify this. And so this wording, for those of you who have followed us over the years, you'll probably notice this wording has sort of evolved over time, and we're trying to keep up with medicine and also stay true to our mission. And so individuals who meet one of the following criteria are eligible to apply. So either you have to be finished with your planned treatment with no evidence of disease, or you have to be at least 1 year post-completion of your planned therapy with stable disease, or you have to be, and this last one is a little bit of a mouthful, so we'll take it slow, either in remission and on some sort of long-term hormonal therapy, such as tamoxifen, and there are others like it, or in remission and on long-term targeted therapy, things like Gleevec and Herceptin. We picked out these 3 drugs just because they're the most common ones that we see, but if you're not sure if what you're on qualifies under any of these categories, just send us an email to grants@thesamfund.org. We're not medical professionals, and so we do the best that we can, but we have medical advisors that we can consult with on any situations that we're not completely sure of. So if you think you fall under one of these categories but you're not sure, or you're unclear as to whether the drug that you're taking right now fits in long-term hormonal or targeted therapy, just shoot us a note, and please do it early so that we have time to get to our medical advisors and get back to you in time to submit the application. And then the last point is just that if you have received a grant from the Samfund earlier this year, you have to wait until the next grant cycle, which will open up in early 2020, to reapply. So what types of grants does the Samfund award? You'll notice at the top there's a note in orange, because we really wanted to get everyone's attention with this one, because this is new for this year, this cycle. So if you have a family building request, and that excludes storage, but if you have a request that includes things like IVF, IUI, gestational carrier, adoption, embryo transfer, and things like that, if you're ready to become a parent and that's what you're requesting help with, we've actually separated that application out onto its own cycle, and it'll be opening up later this fall. So if you've applied for that in the past, you know that when you request family building, it takes you to a separate set of questions and gets reviewed by a specialized group of reviewers. So that process is going to stay the same. It's just going to happen a little bit later. So as for the types of grants we do accept applications for right now, there's a pretty thorough list of things that we will accept requests for, and you'll notice on the categories of funding page on our grants, on the categories of funding list on our grants page, that it looks a little bit different than past years, and we'll talk about that in just a sec. But in the meantime, it's usually easier to start with the things that we don't provide assistance for. So we can't provide assistance for business-related requests. We don't provide assistance for undergraduate tuition requests, but just to clarify, if you are an undergraduate and you fit the other eligibility requirements, you can still apply for a grant, but we would ask that you request something else other than undergrad tuition. And there are really two main reasons for that. I just want to spend a second on it because we get asked a lot of questions about it. The first is that there are a lot of organizations that provide assistance for undergraduate tuition, and there's actually a list of them on our website. So if you go to our main website, thesamfund.org, and click on the Resources tab, you'll see there's a whole list dedicated to undergrad tuition resources. And the other is that, as I said before, we want to make sure that the help that we're able to provide makes a meaningful difference to somebody in terms of their financial situation. And the reality that we've found over the years is that $1,500 or even $2,000 or $3,000 doesn't generally make a dent in someone's undergraduate tuition bill, but we can support people with some of the other things that they're facing, and hopefully there are many more resources for you to get help with tuition. So we also don't provide assistance for credit card repayment. We don't provide assistance for payment or repayment to friends or family members. So you'll notice when you go through the application, you will see when you make the actual request that we'll ask for payee information, and we'll specify there as well that you can't put yourself or a friend or family member as the payee because those requests won't be considered. And the reason for that is really that typically, and we know that people need to be repaid, but typically friends and family members are going to be a little bit more lenient than third-party providers or bill collectors. And so all of this has sort of come about because we're just trying to focus on, the people who can't get help from anyone else, don't have other resources for support, and knowing that we can't provide funding to everyone that applies, we've had to sort of narrow it down in this way. So we also can't purchase you a car, and we also can't provide assistance for weddings or vacations. So we have the specific categories of funding listed out on our website. The link is on your screen now, thesamfund.org/gethelp/grants. And again, you'll notice the categories of funding list this year is a little bit shorter than in previous years. And the reason was really that we wanted to streamline the whole process. So we want to make it easier for our applicants, first and foremost, and sometimes having a sort of limitless list of options can make it more confusing to know what to ask for. Also for our reviewers, it cuts down on the time that they need to spend sort of sorting through all of the many categories. And what we found over the years is that the requests that we get and the needs that people have fall into certain buckets. And so we tried to look at it from that lens and say, okay, if somebody's having trouble, for example, with utility bills or some of the smaller bills, they're probably also having trouble paying for rent. And for us, from an efficiency standpoint, and for you, it makes it easier for us to send one larger check than many, many smaller checks. So if you have questions as you're looking through the categories of funding, again, please reach out to us, send an email to grants@thesamfund, and we're happy to talk you through our process. So now we'll get into the stuff that you may not necessarily find on our website, which is why we're really glad you're joining us for this website and webinar. And we wanted to provide some insight, not only from our experience over the years, but from our reviewers' feedback. And, when our reviewers, we have a group of about 25 volunteer reviewers, and when they review all of the applications, they have discussions and they have, certain criteria that they're looking at, but they also provide a lot of feedback to us. And so we want to pass that along to you so that you understand, knowing that we can't provide assistance to everyone who applies, we want you to understand why we prioritize certain people or certain requests. So first of all, good candidates for a grant can articulate how their cancer experience has impacted their current financial situation. So you'll notice when Michelle takes you through the application that there are a couple of short essays. And really what we're looking for is the difference between the needs that you have and the needs that your peers may have who haven't had cancer. And so, in other words, the requests don't need to be specifically related to your cancer, but your inability to pay for them has to be related to that. So if cancer took you out of work, if cancer cost you all your money, if cancer prevented you from going back to wherever you were before, that's the stuff that we want to hear about. We want to know how your cancer experience has specifically impacted your financial situation now. We also say that good candidates for a grant have to have immediate financial needs because we understand, especially in this age and life stage in your 20s and 30s, people have a lot of long-term goals, and we've seen over the years people who want to pay, loans down sooner or, save up for something that's 5 or 10 years out, and we get it, and we're glad that people are planning ahead, but while we have limited resources, we're really focusing on the people who have needs right now, the bills that are due immediately or the things that are upcoming in the next couple of months. So as I mentioned just a couple slides ago, we're also looking for people who aren't able to get financial assistance from any other source. So if you're fortunate enough to have support from friends or family members, or there are other resources, other organizations, either locally or in the cancer community nationally, that you could get that same help for, our reviewers do take that into account because they look to prioritize the people who can't find help from anywhere else. Good candidates for a grant also are struggling financially as a result of your treatment. So as I said, maybe you were out of work, maybe you have a lot of bills, or it's aftermath. So if cancer left you unable to go back to the work you were doing before, or you have to work a reduced schedule, or you're managing side effects, all of those things are helpful for our reviewers to know. And finally, we want to just make it clear that good candidates for a grant don't necessarily have to be great writers. You don't have to write an epic novel or, your best work ever. You're not writing a college essay, but we do want you to be able to answer the questions thoroughly. And so, even if answers are brief, they can still be thorough. So make sure that you're reading the questions, you're understanding the questions, and you're giving us the information that our reviewers need to be able to fairly evaluate your situation. So I'm going to try to switch it over to Michelle's screen. Oh, okay, excellent. I'm not going to switch it to Michelle's screen. I'm going to run the slides for her, but I'm going to introduce Michelle Landwehr, who's our Director of Programs and Operations, and will be your main point of contact probably for the grants program, but is going to take you through what the process looks like and the things that you'll need to prepare when you sit down to fill out the application.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a virtual tour through the pieces of the application that are important. So again, those of you who have been through this process before, there's nothing super new or different here, but for those of you for whom this is new, we do ask for some basic personal and contact information. We do ask for some brief information about your diagnosis and treatment, just some rough dates, and maybe a quick synopsis of what your treatment looked like. We do ask a lot of questions about your current financial picture, including monthly expenses and income, and then your assets and your liabilities as well. And so if you, are a person who maybe lives with roommates, we're just going to ask for your portion of the things that you pay. If you have a partner, we're going to ask for your household expenses and then maybe some possible expenses that maybe your partner is responsible for that maybe you aren't, but just so we get a picture of your total household in terms of what that looks like. We do try to get a really holistic picture of what all of your finances look like and take all of that into account rather than saying, like, if you make above X number of dollars, you're not qualified. We realize that finances and the whole picture can be a lot more nuanced than that, so that's why we ask so many questions. The next thing that we do ask for is a medical history verification form signed by a clinician, and that can be your oncologist, it can be your primary care physician, it can be a nurse practitioner, anyone with a medical license who can verify your diagnosis and treatment, even if they weren't somebody who treated you. That's all we need. So you'll see that form is early on in the application, and we encourage everybody to download it and send it off to your doctor as soon as possible because, as many of us know, doctors are busy people, and oftentimes it can take a while to get a piece of paperwork back from them. So we do ask that you include your contact information on that form so that your doctor can send the form back to you. In the past, we've included our information for them to send it back directly to us, but for several reasons, we're asking them to send it back directly to you. And once you have it, if you have difficulty uploading it to your application, you can contact us and we can help you with that. The last piece of paperwork that we ask for are your 1040s, which are tax forms from the last 2 years. If you don't have both 1040s from both of those years, we also ask you to include an affidavit, which you can also download off of that section of the application, which is basically just a signed statement indicating what you may have earned in income during that time, and if you did not earn any income, then you can include that on there, and specifying why you didn't file taxes, and it may be because your income didn't meet the threshold for filing, or you may be because you were a student and claimed as a dependent on somebody else's taxes, or maybe because you were had some other reason why you didn't file that year. We just need to see what was going on if you don't actually have that paperwork to back it up. And you'll see again on the application, I'll just elaborate on this now, but if you aren't able to find your Form 1040s, which are just 2 pages, or if you filed a 1040 easy, it's 1 page. But if you're not able to find copies of your tax returns from those years, you can also go online to the IRS's website, that's irs.gov, and download a tax summary from that year, and we'll also accept that. So you should be able to go online, do that for free without having to pay anything or wait, weeks in order to receive it. But again, for any of that paperwork stuff, we encourage people to kind of knock that out first. Try to do it early so that if you run into any trouble, you have any questions at all, we can help you with that. So now that we got through the paperwork, and once you've gotten through the finances, actually I think, in fact, this year we switched the order around, so we ask you about what it is that you're looking for and the essay questions before we ask about your finances. But in any case, you'll take a look at the different options you have for categories of funding. You'll make your requests. You can make up to 3 requests, and we ask you to rank them in the order of priority. So the first request number 1, would be the thing you prioritize the most. Grant 2 would be the thing you prioritize next, and so on and so forth. And you'll be able to see there's a drop-down menu there that'll show you the grant category as well as the maximum amount you can request in that category. We also ask you for payee information, and sometimes people get confused about this. This is just information about who the grant would be paid to. This information can change. For instance, if you are looking to get some dental work done and you found one dentist that you think might be the right fit for you, but it turns out later on that you have to switch dentists, that's not a problem at all, but we need the name of a dentist there. That's who the payee is. The payee can be your landlord, the payee can be the dentist, the payee can be a hospital, the payee can be your student loan company, but we need the name of someone or some entity, some organization that we would be sending a check. Unfortunately, if you put your name down there, you put down your mom's name down there, you put your friend's name down there, unfortunately those are not considered to be valid payees, and we can't consider the request because we don't send checks directly to our recipients or to friends or family members. So again, we try to be super transparent about that in the application, but I always like to mention it just an extra time to make sure people are really clear on that. And then finally, as Sam mentioned earlier, if you're applying for a grant related to family building, please wait until our separate family building application, which is going to be later this fall, probably sometime in September, but once we have more information about that, we'll be sure to send an email out and share that on social media as well. But that'll be, again, a separate application. Great. So a little bit about setting up an application. It's very simple. You're going to just click on the link to, you can either just go straight to our homepage because the link will be right there. You can go right to our grants page on or after Wednesday. On that first page, and I'll show you that on the next screen, you're going to enter your name and then just click Save right away and enter an email address. You'll be emailed a unique link so that anytime you can go back into that application and access it again. This system doesn't have a situation where you have a login. You have a unique link which you want to hold on to. Make sure that you see that before you proceed because, again, the link will allow you to save and get back into your application anytime you need to. We encourage everybody to read the application directions really carefully. Save frequently, answer every question as best you can, as completely as you can, because really the reviewers only have what you share with them in order to go on. So sometimes somebody might come back to us later and say, I can't believe you didn't fund me because X, Y, and Z were going on, and we go back to the application and say, well, unfortunately you didn't actually share that. You didn't include it in any of your essay questions, and so unfortunately they didn't know that. So just make sure that you try to share the important details of your story so that the reviewers have all of that critical information. And then you want to make sure that once you click send, ultimately that you receive an email confirmation. And if not, you want to contact our office immediately and we'll help you troubleshoot. So on the next slide here, so this is just what that first page looks like. So again, there are the instructions there. You can see where you would enter your first name, your last name, and your email. And then on the next screen, all right. Oh. So So this is the section here where you have the eligibility questions, and then that little red arrow points down to save. So you want to make sure that, again, you do that as often as possible. And then the following screen, you'll see what the email looks like. So this is the email that you're going to see pop up in your inbox. So it'll come from grants@thesamfund.org. So you want to make sure that you check your spam box if for any reason you don't see this right away, but it'll give you that unique link right there where it says click here to continue your submission. You want to make sure to hold on to that email and to be able to go back in there anytime you need, if you need to. Presumably you're not going to, some people, I guess, complete the application in one sitting, but most people won't. So you want to make sure you have that link handy. And the medical history verification form, again, I talked a little bit about that previously. You want to make sure you download that form. There's a full form section of the application that comes in pretty early on. You want to print or email that form to your doctor. Just make sure that you fill out your contact information in there. The doctor will need to fill out that whole form. Just make sure, to convey to them, please fill out all of the fields, because if the form's incomplete, we're going to have to send it back. It should be returned to you, and then if you need help uploading it, you can email us, and we'll help walk you through that. And the form is required before your application can be submitted. Please don't upload a blank form there and say, oh, doctor, we'll send later. We can't accept that. The application is going to be sent back. And next page. All right. And similarly, I already gave you a little preview on the tax returns. We'll ask you to submit the first 2 pages of your 1040s, so not your full tax returns. They can be uploaded as one file, or you can upload them separately as 2 files, whichever is easier for you. And again, if you didn't file taxes in both of those years, then we ask you to download and submit an affidavit, which must be notarized. And the notarized means it actually just needs to be stamped and signed by a person called a notary public. And where do you find a notary public? You can find one at a public library. You can find one at your local bank. You may be able to find one at your local city hall or court office, even places like insurance agencies, real estate agencies. There are a lot of different businesses in your town that might have one. So it's good to call around a little bit, but the public library and the bank are usually good places to start. So again, a notary should not charge you. We have heard instances where a notary public wants to charge somebody. If that happens, please try to find a different notary. That's terrible that they would do that. Most notary publics will do that for free. We don't want this to cost anybody anything. So the tax forms, again, this is just a page from the application that shows you what that looks like. So in this sample application here, we indicated, yes, I filed taxes in that year, and then you just click on the Add File in order to find the file in your computer in order to add your tax forms. And I'll just add in here, and again, we include this in the instructions. You'll see in this second little paragraph here, we highly recommend that you redact or black out any Social Security numbers on your tax forms. We handle all the forms really securely, and then we delete them after the application process is completed, but we still recommend, just for your own protection, that you black that information out. So some people only have access to the forms electronically. We can try to help you with that. Again, a lot of software programs, you can actually just include like a black bar over that. If you have the forms and you're scanning them in by hand, or you're taking a picture with your phone, then please just take a marker and black those out before you send them in. And on the last page of the application, you'll see, again, we want you to go back, make sure all your answers are correct, and once you've done so, then you're going to click Send at the bottom there to submit your application. I would strongly suggest that you click Save one more time before you click Send, just in case you run into any trouble, but that's what the last page looks like. So in terms of submitting the forms, this tends to be the thing that trips people up a little bit, and so again, we want to make this as easy and smooth as possible for you. Again, if you don't have access to a scanner, there's so many different apps on smartphones now, or you can just take a picture of the form on your smartphone and send it in. That's all totally fine as long as it's readable. It's completely fine. But if for whatever reason you can't upload the form yourself, then you would email us at grants@thesamfund.org. You can also fax it to us at that number, but we would still need to communicate with you about how to access your application with that unique link. So I suggest really emailing is the best. You can also just call us at our office. which I see our office number isn't actually on here. It's 617-938-3484, but we'll make sure that on all of our materials you'll see our phone number there as well. And then we do ask if you need our help uploading a form, that you make sure to get that to us no later than August 7th, which is 2 days before the deadline, to ensure that they're uploaded in time. Things get really crazy here those last couple days before the deadline, and we want to make sure that everybody manages to get their submission in and that nobody is unable to do that because of a missing form. So just a final word before we wrap up here. Just please make sure everything's correctly filled out. Take a couple of looks through it. Make sure nothing, was you made any sort of errors in terms of filling things out or neglected to fill out any of the fields, and that everything is uploaded correctly. Again, as Sam mentioned, unfortunately we can't check applications for errors after people submit, but we're more than happy to try to help provide any kind of assistance that we can before people submit. Even though we're a larger team now, we're still a pretty small program team, and we do our best to try to catch anything in advance, but it's just not possible all the time. So we do encourage you to ask us as many questions as you need beforehand. It's never a problem. If you need to make phone calls, you need to send us emails, whatever it is, it's always better than realizing after the fact that something is wrong or something is missing. So please feel free to call and email as much as you need in order to get your questions answered, because, again, any applications that are incomplete or who have old forms, incorrect forms, again, we always need new forms every year. We can't use a medical history form from a previous grant cycle. Everything needs to be refreshed. So unfortunately, those applications won't be reviewed. So we want to make sure that that doesn't happen either. And just to review the timeline, the application will be available starting sometime in the morning on Wednesday. And the deadline is Friday, August 9th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, not Central Time, not Mountain Time, not Pacific Time, Eastern Time. We always get a few people who are confused about this, so please make sure to mark that on your calendars that it's 5 p.m. Eastern Time on that Friday. We suggest you get that medical history form to your doctor right away, start working on those tax forms right away, and remember that everybody will be notified by early October. So I think that's about it. So again, you can always go to that information page for more info about the application or the process, and always feel free to email us with any questions. We'll do our best to get back to you as quickly as we can. Email generally is a much faster way to get a response than the phone, but that's there as well. And we wish everybody the best of luck. So what we can do right now is take a few questions.
So like we said, we'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can now. If something comes up after the webinar or you sit down to fill out the application and something comes up that you hadn't thought about, like Michelle said, email, call, reach out for help. We give you guys a lot of credit for starting early just by virtue of the fact that you joined us for this webinar today. So, you have the inside scoop. The earlier you guys start, the better the chances that you're going to submit a complete application with all the information that we need. It's not a guarantee that you will receive a grant, but a lot of times, like Michelle was saying, applications are disqualified because forms are missing or every field says 0 or, someone lists themselves as a payee. So you guys are starting early. We really appreciate you taking the time to do that. So I just want to field a couple of questions, and, if you have more, just keep them coming. So the first question is about the timing on the grant payouts. So for someone who needs their rent paid right now, when can they expect funds to be paid out? And the answer, unfortunately, is that we're not set up to be able to provide immediate or emergency assistance, and so our process does take a while. We've done the best that we can over the years to shorten that time frame as much as possible, but like Michelle said, everybody will get notified in October. From there are a couple forms you'll have to submit. Nothing that will take too long, and once we get your paperwork, we do our best to turn around the grant check within a week or two. So unfortunately, the earliest would probably be late October, early November. So just keep that in mind. If you are looking for help right now or your rent or your other bills need to be paid immediately, we have a lot of resources on our website. And, you can certainly reach out to us with specific questions, about other organizations that can help with this request or that request, and we'll do our best to point you in the right direction so that you can try and find help quicker than we're able to provide it.
Great. A couple other questions that came in. Does it matter if I was diagnosed when I was a child? And the answer to that is no. It does not matter whether you finished your treatment 20 years ago or yesterday. What matters is that you're able to draw a clear connection between your financial need and your cancer experience. So if you have a lot of after effects from your treatment that have impacted your ability to work, just explain that. That's something that we've seen a lot over the years. We have a lot of recipients who are childhood survivors, and because their treatment impacted them either physically or cognitively or some combination of both, they make a really strong case for why funding would help move them forward. Sort of connected to that, another question, can I submit an application for someone else? And the answer to that is it really depends. There are instances where somebody needs to submit on behalf of the survivor, but really those are only in instances where the survivor is either physically or cognitively unable to submit themselves. So saying I'm submitting for my husband because I'm a better writer unfortunately doesn't suffice. Saying I'm submitting for my son because he's really busy with school right now also does not suffice. But to say, I'm submitting for my partner because they can't look at a computer for long periods of time, or because they, have really significant cognitive after effects from their treatment, then those would be totally acceptable reasons to submit on someone else's behalf. Certainly, you can help, whoever it is with that application if they need to dictate some things to you, or they need some help typing, or they need help figuring out, okay, how much do we pay for, X, Y, or Z every month, then that's 100% fine. We actually encourage people to get help filling out the application. If you, for instance, don't have access to a computer, you might need some help with, maybe going to your local hospital and asking your social worker to help you. So we do encourage people to get help where they need it, but unfortunately you need to submit the application yourself, aside from those instances where you might be physically or cognitively unable to do so.
And two other notes on that same question. So the first is that submitting an application for someone doesn't mean writing it for them. So it's really important that the applicant, him or herself, is involved, can tell you the answers to the essay questions, can provide the information. So, like Michelle was saying, we've, had people submit for other people because they're too busy, which is a very different reason than some of the specific examples Michelle gave where someone can't, sit at a computer screen long enough for things like that. So as long as the applicant is involved in the application process, if what you're doing is typing it in for them, that is totally fine. But there is a field where we'll ask you if you're filling it out for somebody else and to just give us a brief explanation as to why. And the other, situation is a language barrier. So unfortunately, at this time, the application is only available in English, but we do a lot of outreach to social workers and our cancer community partners in hopes that if there is someone who speaks a language other than English and wants to submit an application, they have support from either someone in the clinical setting or maybe there's a friend or family member. So that's totally okay too. So another question that came in was related to something Michelle mentioned about the notary, but does it cost anything to submit an application? And the answer is unequivocally no. It should not cost you anything to submit. So if at any stage of this you are facing a cost, if somebody's trying to charge you for a form or I'm not sure what else you would be charged for. But if at any point that question comes up, please call us and let us help you because it should not cost you anything to submit an application or to get a form notarized. So another question is about crowdfunding campaigns because some people are fortunate to have friends or family members fundraising for them while they're in treatment or helping to pay some of their bills. And so the question is, does a GoFundMe campaign that a friend had for me disqualify me from receiving a grant? And the answer is no. It doesn't right off the bat disqualify you at all. But we do ask that you give us an explanation as to either how much was raised and or what happened to those funds, why you're still submitting a grant request to us. We know sometimes the crowdfunding campaigns can be a great source of support, and sometimes they don't raise enough to cover all of the bills. And so, on its own, no, finding out that there was a crowdfunding campaign for you does not disqualify you. But, as we were saying earlier, the fewer questions our reviewers have, the better. So if there's something like that that's noted on your financial form or that you mention in an essay that you think they would, need more information on, please just give us all the information we need.
Great. And one other question that came in around the new family building application. Somebody wanted to know, can I submit an application for the regular grant cycle happening now and then also submit an application for the family building? Technically, I guess somebody could do that, but only if you're not funded in this grant cycle. So we're not going to be if you were to be, say, submitting an application for, a rent request in the fall or for this grant cycle happening now, and then decide that you also want to submit an application for family building come, later on this fall, unfortunately that's not going to be possible. You're not going to be funded in both of those grant cycles. Also, I think due to the timing, it may not be possible for people to know whether or not they've been funded for this grant cycle before applying for family building. So I think the safest bet is please just choose one or the other, decide what your priority is. If your priority is family building, then please wait and submit for that. If your priority is financial assistance for other sort of living expenses, then please apply for that now.
So one last question, unless you guys have any others, is what if my mom pays my rent? And the short answer is request something else. So what will happen if you are awarded a grant is that we will ask you for some paperwork to back up the request and also to tell us who to send the check to. And if you send us a copy of your lease that has your mom's name on it, unfortunately we're not going to be able to pay that. And so, we mention it in the payee section that, we can't fund friends or family members, and we want you to ask for things that nobody else is helping you pay for. And sort of the addition to that is that your name has to be on the bills. And so if the application successfully makes it through the review committee and the review committee recommends you for a grant, the next step will be, we'll contact you and then we will ask you for a copy of whatever bill it is you want us to pay, and your name really has to be on that. So again, if you have a question about that or if something is unclear in your paperwork or in the application, please reach out to us. These are all the kinds of things that we would love to get ahead of and we would love to help you get ahead of, because in the end, we want to help as many people as possible, and we're not out to trick anybody, and we're not out to, change the rules or anything like that. Our requirements and our process have been consistent over many years, and we do our best to be transparent about those things. So if there's anything that's unclear, anything that's a question mark, please just reach out to us as early as possible so that we can help you resolve it and not run into an issue down the line. So if there are no other questions, we will thank you guys again for joining us for the Grants 101 webinar. We're going to be posting this on our YouTube channel. We'll share it through our social media pages, and we'll also post a copy or post a link to it on our grants page. So if you have been listening to this webinar and know somebody who might find it helpful or are a provider and want to share it with the young adults in your community or in your clinic, the link will be active later today. And again, we're here anytime to help you through this process. So thank you so much. Good luck to all of you, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much, everybody.